Welcome to the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat Program with Rabbi Shalom Rosner. Tzurba is a revolutionary halacha sefer which guides you through over 300 topics in Jewish law in a unique signature style. In this weekly series specifically, Rabbi Shalom Rosner learns through the Tzurba Hilchot Shabbat volumes, helping us all master the Halachot of Shabbat in just 2 years. Tzurba volumes are available for purchase worldwide on Amazon. And to learn more about Tzurba, or for those in Eretz Yisrael looking to purchase volumes, please head over to tzurbaolami.com. For more information, see the description below. And now, Rabbi Shalom Rosner.
Everyone, thank the Berkovitz family for sponsoring this week's Shiur in memory of Ephraim ben Nissen Yaakov. The Neshama should have an aliyah. Thank you for all the wonderful sponsorships.
We are in the sixth installment, the sixth Shiur here of volume 20 of Tzurba Mirabanan. Again, the Lax family edition, the volumes. This volume is the Nayazah family volume, talking about personal care on Shabbos, animals on Shabbos, and the start of Muksa. So we started to discuss animals last week. In the last year, we spoke about Machamer and Shvisas Behemto. We spoke about various types of usages of animals on Shabbos, and we started to discuss the issues of Tzeda, the malacha of trapping. We spoke about the malacha daraisa of trapping, where I want the animal, and it's an animal that's normally trapped. But we said there are many animals that are not normally trapped. That's called Ein Bimino Nitzod, and that at most would be an Issa D'Rabbanan. So that's one issue to focus on, the type of animal. And number two, how trapped is it? If I trap a deer into a large corral and I still can't get near the deer, that might not be trapped at all. But there are different levels. There's going from totally free to semi-trapped to fully trapped. So all of those might be at least an Isser D'Rabbanan. So that was some of the background that we discussed last week. So now we get into Heterim, really. So the given is, you're not allowed to trap an animal. But there are going to be 6 possible allowances. That's what we're going to talk about in today's Shiur. 6 possible allowances in the malacha of trapping. And then we'll talk about what about trapping people. Is there an issur of trapping a person? Let's say 2 kids, one wants to lock the other one in the room. So that's not a good idea. But what about another mamakom? Is that also an issue on Shabbos? So we will see a little bit later. So we'll start on page 136. 136, allowances for trapping. You see there 6 possibilities of what and who could be trapped. So number 1, we have domesticated animals. Domesticated animals, meaning animals that are used to be trapped, so to speak, used to be within a home. As we'll see, in the case of animals that generally don't run away from people, but rather they run to people, and they come back every day. And even if they go out during the day, they always come back, then enclosing them in a space cannot be really considered an act of trapping in the true sense on a Torah level. And there are different categories that you might talk about. There are what we call chayos and what we call behemos, right? There are chayos, or birds that have been trained and domesticated, live in a cage, and since they come back every night, then there's not going to be a tzeda d'araisa by them, because they're considered semi-trapped already. And number 2, what about pets or domesticated animals which never run away from people? So all of these, at most, is going to be in Isser D'Rabbanan. The Mishnah tells us in Shabbos, at the beginning of the 14th parak. You have it there in source number 27. That's what we're starting with in this year. 27. Chaya v'ov shebershuso. If you have a non-domesticated animal, wild animal, a chaya, and an for a bird, shebershuso, in your house, hatzadan pater. If you trap them, pater. Well, because they're already trapped. It's not going to be asud d'oraisa. Pater usually means asud d'Rabbanan. If you trap an animal in your house, it's going to be asud d'Rabbanan. So that is unclear. The Gemara says in Shabbos Daf Kuv Zayin, also in Shabbos Daf Gimel, you have it there at source 28. Amar Shmuel. Call Peturei de Shabbos. Generally, we know the rule. Whenever it says Chayiv in Hilchot Shabbos, that means it is a D'Araisa. Whenever it says Pater, that means Pater mi D'Araisa aval Asur D'Rabbanan. So that's what it usually means, except for 3 times. 3 times it uses the word Pater, and it really means mutter. Really means mutter. And this is one of them. Trapping animals that are already trapped. But which cases of trapping are included in this? So everybody would agree, as we'll see, animals that don't really move. But what about animals that do move, that are semi-trapped, like the case of Chayav Of Shebershuso? So machlokas between the Beis Yosef and the Darkei Moshe. And we'll see this turns into a machlokas between the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. Says the Beis Yosef, the Gemara is referring to any case of trapping which the animal is already in one's possession. Any case, even though the Mishnah says, Pater really means mutter. Says the Beis Yosef at 29. Tanan, Chaya o Ov Shebershuso, Hatzadan Potter, V'chol Paturei the Shabbos Potter Avalasar, Barmi Anachtalas, says this is it. This is a case of mutter, one of the three cases that putter means mutter. But the Darkei Moshe, the Ramon, the Darkei Moshe says that the Shiltiki Borim rules that it is not allowed to seize oaf or wild animals that are already in a person's possession, at least midrabanan. That is not what mutter, what Shmuel was meant. Mutter meant entirely domesticated animals like a cow. Like a cow doesn't move. So that's where putter means mutter. But other types of animals like chickens that move around, that are in your reshus, but they're not fully trapped, you might have to move a little bit to catch them. So then that's still Asr Durabanan. Says the Darkei Moshe, quoting the Shiltei Giborim. Asr likach avazim v'tarnagolim v'chayos. Says also to take chickens and geese. Sheish l'adam do'beso that you have in your house could go and svayim shemagalim bebeso. Right, certain types of animals, gazelles that you raise in your house. Avol behemos mutter could go and paros v'rachelim v'shar behemos. And just like this is a machlokas Beis Yosef and the Darkei Moshe on the bottom of the tour, this turns into a machlokas between the Mechaber and the Rambam. The Mechaber says in source 31, Simin Shin Tez Zayin Sif Yud Beis. As long as that animal is not fighting back, is not trying to resist the trapping, it's mutter. Any animal is basically in your house, it's mutter, there's no problems at the Shulchan Aruch. And the Ramah says, not so fast. Even if it's bershuscha, it's still going to be asur dirabanan. V'im sadan pater. Aval, but the Ramah adds, any animal, even a parah and a sus that try to get away, that try to resist, that's going to be asur dirabanan too. Maybe gets even to the world of daraisa. So we have to analyze the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah has a number of important points on this Shulchan Aruch. Again, the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah seem to argue about trapping an animal birshuscha. We'll get to dogs. We'll get to cats. Says the Mishnah Berurah there in Shinta Zayin. Mutter, what's the case of mutter according to the Shulchan Aruch? Afilu bachutz, v'atam, kivan shein b'nei tarbus, since they are domesticated, v'hergalu bebayis, and they are used to being in a home, umemela yachsu lebeis haberev, and they're going to come back tonight. They're used to being here. This is their home. V'noach l'tovson, and it's easy to grab them. Lachein af k'shiyatzu nebayis, even if they go outside the house, they're going to come back tonight. They're easily grabbed, and therefore it's ki'ilu, they are trapped as it is. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says, and there's definitely a shita out there to rely on this case. If somebody has a dog that is outside, to take the dog back in, the Shulchan Aruch would say for sure mutter. Says the Ramah, Yesh Omrim, that even an animal b'rshuscha is still an Issa D'Rabbanan. And if they try to resist, then anything could be a problem. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Pirish, the Bepara v'sushim mine behemos lo shayach say the klal afilu midrabanan. The cows and animals that don't move, that's not shayach any. Afilu kano samechadash. Even a new one, a new cow, doesn't have to be trained. Adayin lohorg lo lavo lebeso ki ein asuyin lihishamei mitachas de adam. They're not running away. They're just a cow. They move very slowly. You could put them in a more narrow place because it originally was trapped and now it's also trapped. But other animals, like animals that a chicken or some other animal that might run away, like a bird, even if you don't need a trap, so it's still going to be an Isser Tzeda Midrabanan, says the Ramah. V'kol zeh b'shalom mirdu, and this is only, obviously the Mishnah Berurah continues explaining the Ramah on the top of page 139, if they are not protesting. Aval merdu, but if they are protesting and resisting, afilu para v'sus chayev chatos aver zeidasan. Then your mom is trapping because right now it wants to get out and you're holding it back, so that would be a problem. So Lamaisa, the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, you have the summary there on page 139. So the Shulchan Aruch says one is allowed to trap any animal that doesn't move, a horse that is just very slow, walking around slowly, a cow or other naturally domesticated animals, because they are willing to submit to human control and they come back to wherever their home is. Any other animal also that has become domesticated and returns to their cage at night, mutter. The Ramah says not so fast. The Ramah says a cow or a horse or other naturally domesticated animals that don't move, so that's mutter. That's mutter. But other animals that have become domesticated and return to their cage at night on their own still are subject to Tzeda D'Rabbanan. Because sometimes they evade, sometimes it's harder to grab them, and that is, the Mishnah Berurah says, one should be machmir for this halacha. So what about animals today? So the Ramah says, cats, you have to be machmir. Chatul dina kashar chayav asol tavsa b'Shabbos. Cats are like that category that is the machlokas according to the Ramah and the Mechaber, and therefore one wouldn't be able to take a cat and put it into their house because it's in that category. Say some achrona, maybe the Ramah is not talking about the cats that are there as pets. Says Rav Nissen Karelitz, the Ramah is referring to stray cats, cats that roam the streets, but dogs or cats as pets, they are like the cows. They are like the inherently, naturally domesticated, and therefore that wouldn't be a problem at all. Says the Torah Samalacha is now on page 30, source number 34. Umiyav Rav Nissen Karelitz Shamati. Tahakol talu yemakelev hukelev beiti olav. Is it a house dog? The kelev beiti have kibehema she'emo tzeda. A kelev beiti, a house dog, that's like an animal that's not subject. That's like a cow. The kamosha behema ina borachas v'odas ba'aleh. It doesn't run away. It knows its owner. Kach kelebayis. So to the dog of the house. And the Rambam calls it a chaya. That's not for this halacha. And he says again, b'tzeida akol tali kiyim borachas. Is it going to run away? Is it going to put up a fight when you want to grab it? So again, the cats the Rambam is talking about are going to put up a little resistance, but where it's darkened. Cats that are outside in the wild. A pet that you feed it. They are totally domesticated. There is no issue of tzeda. So those types of domesticated animals would be totally mutter. If it's a new pet or it's a new house where you just moved into, then Rav Rubiyat notes that one has to be careful in that regard, because even though it's your cat or your dog, it has to get used to its new surroundings, right? You have it there in source 35. A new pet cat or dog that is not yet accustomed to its new owner and surroundings and tries to escape is not considered self-confined, even though it is of domesticated species. Closing the door, right, would be an act of tzeda if that's your purpose. Walking this cat or dog on Shabbos while holding it on a leash, if it's a wild cat or dog that's trying to get away as you take it outside, and the only way you're doing it holding on a leash, that's sud. That's sud if he pulls and tugs at the leash in an effort to run away. So not everybody's aware of that halacha. Again, on a leash where it's basically by you and you're just protecting it from hurting others or getting hurt itself, and it's not really putting up such a fight. So l'chara, that would be mutter. But in a case where the animal is really wild and you're keeping it in check, so that could be the malacha of tzeda. Fine, that is all category 1 discussion, domesticated animals. Number 2, dangerous animals. Page 141. What about dangerous animals? So again, if you remember, the purpose of trapping was to have the animals, to make use of the animals, to use the hides, to use the meat. I caught an animal in order to use. But we know if I don't want to use it, I am trapping it so it doesn't hurt me. So that is what's called a malacha she'eina tzricha legufa. A malacha that is not being done for the purpose that it was done in the Mishkan. That's Tosfos' definition. Or it's not being done for a constructive. It's just being done for a preventative, defensive purpose. And that's Rashi. Bertzono lo hayabalo. So what is the halacha there? That's machlokas. We know Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says malacha she'eina tzricha legufa is also d'Rabbanan. And Rabbi Yehuda says it is still chayiv da'araisa. The Rambam passes like Rabbi Yehuda, but all other Rishonim paskin like the shita of Rabbi Shimon. So what's the halacha here? Trapping an animal, a dangerous animal. So it doesn't matter. If it's pikuach nefesh mamish, you're allowed to do anything. You're allowed to violate anything on Shabbos. But if it's not pikuach nefesh mamish, but it's still a dangerous animal, could cause great harm. So Shmuel says, mutter. Mutter. This is another one of this is the one that's, right, the Shmuel, the patters that mean mutter, says Shmuel, Kuf Zayin, source 36. Amar Shmuel, Kol Pturei de Shabbos, Pater Aval Aser, Lavar Mehani Tlas, to Pater Umutter. All Pturim of Shabbos is an Issa D'Rabbanan, except here, Pater and Mutter. This is a trapping that's allowed. Right? Hatzad Nachash B'Shabbos. Im is Asik Shalo Yeshchenu. If you are involved so it doesn't bite you, pater, and that pater means mutter. V'im l'rafua, if you're trying to trap it because you want to use some medicinal purpose for it, then that's chayiv. Umimai de pater mutter detznan kofin ka'aral haneber shel tochas v'kora v'al tzoa shel katan v'al akrav shel tishach. You're allowed to cover a scorpion so it doesn't bite you. It's beferish. Beferish, you're allowed to do that act. It's not just asur d'rabbanan. It's even mutter. And that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Shin Tezayin, that's the Siman of Seidah, source 37, on page 142. Hatzana chashav b'Shabbos. Somebody traps snakes on Shabbos. Oshar remasim hamazikim. Im l'refuah chayiv. You can do the same exact act, but a lot of Hilchot Shabbos, as we know, depends on your kavana. Meleches machsheves asra Torah. What's asra daraisa is thought out, artisan, expert work. So if you are trapping in order to get what you are trapping, so that's the regular malacha. That's regular trapping. That's going to be meleches machsheves asra daraisa. But if you're just doing it as a preventative measure, that's not meleches machsheves, and therefore it's not going to be da'araisa. And again, the Mishnah Berurah says the allowance is not limited to those creatures that pose an immediate threat to a person's life. Right? It's obviously even more expanded than that. Says the Mishnah Berurah, V'atam daha havi malacha shin tzorach legufa, which at most remembers a d'rabbanan according to how we paskin generally. Da'ino tzorach letzud el shelo yishchenu. You just don't want it to bite you. V'im haya yadua yodeya sheya'amod v'lo yazikenu lo hayatzad. And if he knows that it won't damage, then not. It's not even an Isser d'Rabbanan. The Aruch HaShulchan has a fascinating formulation. It's not just a Malach Shein Gufa that's usually Asur, but here we're going to matter because of potential pain. The Aruch HaShulchan says this isn't even the Malacha of Tzeidah. Bimahus. Bimahus, what's Seidah? You want to bring an animal into your possession. Here, what are you trying to do? You try to bring an animal out of your possession, being marchik the animal. It's the opposite of the malacha of tzeidah. That's the Aruch HaShulchan's formulation. Source 39. Dibit tzeidah kishalon is kavin latzud elalah hagain shalo yishchenu. If what you're trying to do is not to trap, but to protect, ein ze bichlal tzeidah klal. Wow. That's not called tzeidah. The Iker Kavanasa, the Tzeidah Iker Kavanasa, what do you usually do Tzeidah for? Latsu de l'Rishuso, to trap it, to bring it into your Rishus. Ubekan Iker Kavanaso, Laharchiko. Here the Iker Kavana is to distance, Laharchik. Vavi Hefech Mamish Mitzeidah, that's the opposite. It's the opposite of Tzeidah. V'lachein gam inyan malach shezvich legufa lo shayakan. It's not even a malach shezvich legufa. It's a better heter. It's not a malach at all. De'ein ze malacha klal, I'll give you Hefech Me'ikar Kavanaso malacha. And again, this is not what we call darshin and time of dekra, because we're not darshin and time of dekra. You can't darshan the reason for an isser and therefore say that, okay, the isser doesn't apply. This isn't the reason. This is about the mahus. Rav Asher Weiss in Parshas Chukas talks about the difference between a tam ha-mitzvah and a mahus ha-mitzvah. Or mahus ha-mitzvah. Sometimes it's something that looks like a tam, but it's the mahus. Right? Who says this? There's a Tosei Rush that says this. There's a Gemara B'Metzia and Daf Tzadi, which talks about, we know there's an isser of muzzling an animal. Isser of muzzling, right? And it's connected to the Isser of Tzurba Hilchot. That's one of the sources of Tzurba Hilchot is the Isser of muzzling an animal. But ask the Gemara, what happens if an animal has an illness, a very, very loose stomach? And everything it eats, it just like gets sick and is in pain and it has diarrhea. Are you allowed to muzzle the animal so the animal doesn't eat? Because if it eats, it's just going to be in pain. That's the question of the Gemara. So ask the Tosei Rush there, but let's see at Daf Tzadi. This is muzzling the animal. Lo darshin and time to grow. Just, you're not allowed to muzzle the animal. Well, you're darshaning because the animal doesn't get sick and now it's going to be worse. Says the Tosei Rush, this isn't the time to kra. This is the kra. The whole essence of the Isra muzzling is the pain of the animal. And if it's the opposite, that side of the Gemara is saying that it's mutter. So here too, I would say it's the definition of tzad. It's not that, we're darshaning, what the tachlis. No, this is the definition of tzad, is bringing, according to the Aruch HaShulchan, you're bringing an animal closer to you. And here you're trying to distance the animal further from you. So it's not just a malach shezvich legufa, which is usually pater, but now it's mutter. It's even bigger heter. It's an even bigger heter. Good. The Shulchan Aruch Harav, the first Lubavitcher Rebbe, says that this heter only applies to animals whose bite is it hurts a lot. If it's just a nuisance, then you can't trap. Others are going to be more makel. But the Shulchan Aruch Harav says that in source 40. Shin Tazayin Yurches. V'kol zeh b'ramasim shedarkan lahazik mamish. Kigon nechashim v'akrabim. Af b'makom ha'she'enim amisam v'nishichasan. Right, you're talking about scorpions and snakes. They damage a lot. They hurt a lot. If it's just some pain, then you wouldn't be able to. You wouldn't be able to, but we will see about that. The Yalkut Yosef here says in 41 that the isser of trapping again doesn't apply to a snake if you're just doing it to prevent the snake from damaging, even if the snake would not kill, which obviously that would be mutter, and even if the snake is not slithering after you, you're allowed to trap it. Because it's in the area, and that would be good enough of a reason. So that is number 2. We spoke about domesticated animals. We spoke about dangerous animals. What about biting? Biting insects, as we were just talking about in terms of the Shulchan Aruch Hara. So Tosfos seems to say Shabbos Kuf Zayin that one is allowed to catch and remove a insect, a mosquito, a pest which causes pain with its bite and discomfort. Says Tosfos. Mashba. Right, but the Gemara says Sadas a parosh. Parosh is like a flea. Rabbi Yehuda poter. Mashba the padra v'lasar. V'omeri b'shem arav parat. Di afilu hachi. Im noshech ha'adam. If an animal is going, if the insect is going to bite, mutter likachenu lashlicho me'alav t'mishen tzar shari. If the animal is biting, im noshech adam. If it's biting, you can take it off. You can take it off and throw it away. But if it's in a place that you're not worried that it's going to bite you, Kigon al sarbalo, it's on the outside of your shirt, then you can't, because there's no chash of biting there. You can just like brush it off. If you brush it off, that's the issue of muksa with a shinoi, not doing it directly, so that would be mutter. So the question is, what does Tosfos mean? The Beis Yosef is not sure what Tosfos means, because the first line of Tosfos says, if it's biting you, you can remove it. The second line of Tosfos says, if it's not in a position that it's going to bite you, like it's on a sleeve, then you can't. What about the middle case? What about it's on your arm, but it's not biting you yet? So are you allowed to, Tosfos says, if it's biting you, so what if it's on the arm? So you get different impressions. You look at the first half of Tosfos, it sounds like only if it's biting, but if it's not biting, then it's going to be Usser. The second part of Tosfos is only if it's on your sleeve, but if it's on your arm, it'll be mutter. So Beis Yosef says, I'm not sure about that. Source 43, the Beis Yosef has that suffix. V'lashon Tosfos shekasafti tzorach diktuk. You have to be medactic and wonder what Tosfos means. The mereisha the lishna mashma. From the beginning, the first part, it sounds like the lo shari litzla ela b'shoshan oshachas dafka. Maybe you can't take it except when it is actually biting. Mishum davi kimis asek shalo yishchenu. Right? Because then you're not trapping it, you're just preventing it from biting you. Ha'im eino ala basar, but if it's not on your skin, aval bishu abagadav b'mivnim asar. But it sounds like from that if it's on the skin not biting you, it would be asar. But miseifa delishta, the end of Tosfos gives the other impression. Mashma dedafka kshial basar balomi bachutz. The only time that it is going to be usher to remove is if it's on your sleeve. It's not in a dangerous area. But if it's on your skin, on the inside, so unclear. The Shulchan Aruch is machmir. Shulchan Aruch says only if an animal, the insect is biting you. But if it's just a chash that is gonna bite you, says the Shulchan Aruch, you can't. Pirish, Parosh, Hanikra, Bargus, Belashon Arav, Asur Latsudo, Elam Kinhu, Abasaro, Va'oksa. But the Mishnah Berurah quotes the other understanding and those that are Mako, V'ish Mekilim Gamchu Al Chaluko, Mi Befnim, Litzlo Biyadu Lashlicho, Pen Yavel Akitza, even if it's going to bite you, even if it's in the place where it could bite you, so then that also would be mutter. The Shmir Shabbos says, one can rely on the Mishnah Berurah. Right, you don't have to wait till it starts biting you in order to remove it or trap it. Right, one can take it off right when it's in that position. Says the Shmir Shabbos, source 46. Charakim acherim, other types of insects, kagon, yitushim, mosquitoes, sha'amna malulam la'akotis adam. They commonly bite a person. Avalo yigremu le'ke'evim rubim. They won't cause, most cases, tremendous pain, but just some discomfort. Yavricha me'alav lo yasodosam. You should try to just shoo them away. Ubishasha oksim, but if they are biting, Oshanim Samal Gufadam, or they're on my skin and they're gonna bite me, Gam im Einam Oksim Adain, even if they're not biting yet, If you can't remove them by shooing them, that's not helping. You can trap them. Take it and throw it outside. You try not to kill it, right? There's no reason that you have to kill it. So the Shmir Shabbos says one can rely on the more Mekel Shita quoted in the Mishnah Berurah to even if it's not biting. There are those that say even if it's in the vicinity, it's not on your skin yet because you just still don't want it to get to hurt you. So the on page 145 in the middle, it's summarized that it would seem that if a wasp or other stinging insect is on one's body and is about to sting, it's mutter. If it's anywhere near, not right on you, just flying around, so then it's not 100% clear. Not 100% clear, right? The Aruch HaShabbos says one shouldn't trap in that at that time if it's not on you or near you. Baalei Chaim, if it's just flying around the room. If Baalei Chaim, whose bite is not so bad, it's just discomfort, sira odvara, but there are other poskim, Rav Simcha Bunim Kohn, the Kitzur Chashabas that says a bee, a hornet, those hurt, and therefore if they're in your vicinity, you can take it out. They're in your vicinity, you can get rid of them. Dvora otsira, says the Kitzur Chashabas, source 48. Sheba'os la'okso, mutter l'chapos kli aleim, you can trap them. Shebevada ha'inechom lomar. That's called the damage. Shari palmim oksim b'mkomas haguf. Many yochal achalav olemiakizos shamsar godlu. You have a lot of pain, right? And near the eye, near the lips, right? The Shabbos home also. If you're worried that it might sting you or someone else, he's permitted to trap it on Shabbos because the bites could cause extreme pain. But the trapping should not be done with a regular trap. Be done with a cup. So one should be aware of that. That if it's an animal, if it's an insect, if it's a wasp or a bee that could cause pain, and shooing it away is the best. But if shooing it away is not enough, one could trap it and take it outside. That is allowed according to the Kitzur Chashabas, according to the Shabbos home. Shlomo Zalman discusses whether Malach Gufa would be mutter if there's no physical pain, but maybe just some psychological, emotional pain. So he doesn't know if that's a basis, but that's a big issue about mental health, which we don't have too many sources here. Okay, next. We spoke about dangerous animals. We spoke about domesticated animals and dangerous animals and biting insects. Number 4, animals that move very slowly. Says what if you have an ant? They're an isser of trapping an ant. So an ant is not usually something that's trapped. So at most it's going to be a drabanan, right? Ein b'mino nitzod. But if Shlomo Zalman or if turtle, what about trapping a turtle? Says Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, mutter to trap an animal that is basically not moving because it's omeid v'nitzod. That's its essence. And Shlomo Zalman bases it on the Tosfos Rid. The Tosfos Rid is trying to figure out what the identity of the chomet is. The chomet is one of the Shmona Shratzim, and the Mishnah says that a chomet, if you trap it, you're chayiv. Says the Tosfos Rid, the chomet cannot be the snail because snails don't move, and snails won't be subject to trapping. So just Derech Agad, the Tosfos Rid assumes that there's no trapping when it comes to animals that don't move, and therefore that's the Shlomo Zalman's shita against his contemporary Rav Elyashiv. Rav Elyashiv assumes there's still an Issa D'Rabbanan for trapping these animals based on Rabbi Yerucham. Rabbi Yerucham, when he talks about trapping, he talks about chilzonos. He talks about snails. And he thinks that's still an Issa D'Rabbanan. So, machlokas haposkim. But Karelitz notes that everybody would agree, okay, even Rav Elyashiv, that you can't trap it, you could prevent it from going more. Let's say pouring water around where the ants are. You can't kill the ants for no reason. But you want to pour the water around where the ants are so they don't go to new places. That would be mutter. That's quoted in the Dirshu Mishnah Berurah on page 148, source number 53. Right, to pour any type of liquid, svivos nemalim, around the ants, kadeshli is pashtu babayis, they don't spread out. Rav Karelitz says that's mutter. Even if you say like Rav Elyashiv that it's usher to trap those kinds of animals because the malim, the ants are ein b'mino nitzod, and say the D'Rabbanan, this is a grama of a D'Rabbanan, and put that all together, it would be allowed. So that's in terms of very slow animals, machlokas haposkim, Rav Shlomo Zalman, and so he has a pet turtle, right? This could come up. And Rabbi Yashiv. Next, what about you have some, I don't know, maybe you have a bird flying around your house, but you're freezing and the window's open. You want to close the window. Could you close the window knowing that there might be an animal inside, right? Can you close the door? So the Mishnah Brura, quoting the Chai Adam, right? The Chai Adam, Rabbi Avram Danzig says it will be mutter. It will be mutter to keep out the cold if your kavana is not to trap. Why? Why is it mutter? The Mishnah Brura says, "Ubizman hakar sheisar tzina o tzar acher kasav achai adam shemutter lenol." You're allowed to close. Im ein kavanah rak lahatzil min hakar. You just want to keep the cold out. Veina rotza klal b'tzeidas hatzipor. You don't want to trap the bird. Kivan de'ein bot seida daraisa. There's no seida daraisa here. It's not your kavana. It's already in the house. So at most it is a seida rabbanan. So let's do the math. There's a number of durabbanans here. It's a durabbanan. I'll give it durabbanan 3 or 4 times. Number 1, it's an animal that's already half trapped. So that's already 1 durabbanan. Number 2, you don't have kavana for it. At most it's a psik reisha delo nichale. Right? You don't care about the or lo ichbas leit. That's another durabbanan. Right? And that's and then it's not the normal way of trapping. Right? Going physically, just closing the door. So a number of durabbanans. And your kavanah is just to keep the cold out, so that would be allowed. That would be allowed. Psik reisha by at least 2 durabbanans is allowed. What about closing a door that was closed, now open, now closed? So the Aruch HaShabbos talks about that. Where does this come up? Let's say you have an animal in your house. So if you have an animal in your house, you open the door, close the door. Okay, normally that's not a problem. But what if you have a wild animal, a dog? You just bought a dog, and every time the door opens, the animal tries to get out. So that's an issue. Let's say you have a bird cage. You want to feed your bird. So you open the little bird cage, but if you open the door the whole way, the bird's going to fly out. So says the Aruch HaShabbos and the other poskim say, in these types of cases, you have to make sure to only open the door a little bit so it basically still stays trapped. Or put your body in between so it's still considered trapped when you put the food in. Says the Aruch HaShabbos, Baal Chaim, Hanimsu Makam Sagur. You have an animal that's in a closed-in area. Shabohu Mugdar Kinitzo. He's trapped. V'niftach adelas, and now the door opens, and it's totally opened. Asur lachzor v'lasogr v'ishbis Torah. If it's considered untrapped now, and now you're going to trap it, that could be a daraisa. Achim bal chayim nimsa makam gadol she'ena begeder nitzod v'niftach adelas. If it's not called nitzod, so then even afterwards it's not called nitzod, then there wouldn't be an issue. Umitam zeh, he says, that's why yesh lizar b'davar matzui kamen k'shemachnisin l'ochel, when you give food l'balei chayim hanim so b'toch ha'kluv, in a little cage, don't open the door the whole way. But l'ravcha ba'ofan shebalei chayim asuyin levroach. Why? Because if you open it the whole way, that's considered not trapped, and then you close it, it's considered trapped. That's a problem. So you got to put your body or your hand. If it's in the front door, put your body in there, so it's basically always considered closed, and you never go from untrapped to trapped. So those are the 6 applications of the malacha of trapping. 2 other points to talk about. What about putting out a trap? Putting out a trap. You notice on Shabbos morning that, you notice you have mice. So are you allowed to put a mouse trap out? I'm going to put the mouse trap out, and I'm going to look at it. Is that called trapping? I'm not trapping. I'm just putting out the trap. Are you allowed to put out a trap on Shabbos? So the Gemara says, no. You're not allowed to. The Mishnah says, you can't put out the parsa mitzudos. Can't put out the mitzudos on Shabbos. You can on Erev Shabbos. That's Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. We pass like Beis Hillel. There's no shvisas kalim, and therefore, before Shabbos you can. Why not on Shabbos? 8 parsa mitzudos, Shabbos. Tosfos, Shabbos, use Zayin Base. Source 56. Afagav de b'Shabbos nami impiris mitzude no chayav chatos yodeim yasudim lav. Even if on Shabbos putting out a trap is going to be an asad d'Rabbanan, because right now you're not trapping anything, you're just putting out the trap. Mikol makom gazru lifros mitzuda. There's a gzera not to put out a mitzuda. Why? It could be a daraisa. If at the moment that you put it out, the animal jumps in, you're trapping. Kagon shebishas prisas o yilkot. Right, so therefore putting out a trap on Shabbos is Asur D'Rabbanan, because it could lead to Nisa D'Araisa. Right, that's what the Magen Avraham says. You can't put out the trap. But again, putting out a trap before Shabbos is mutter. We pass like Beis Hillel, that is allowed. The Yalkut Yosef says, Asur Lifros Mitzuda B'Shabbos, Av kedei latzur achbar. You can put it out before. It's also to put it out on Shabbos, even if you want to just trap a mouse. V'af al pi she'ein ha'achbar nitzo take. If even though it's only going to be trapped later on, you still can't put it out. But putting it out beforehand is allowed. The opposite case, what if you want to set an animal free? That's mutter. Not every opposite of a malacha is asr, right? They have kosev and mochek and tofer and korea. So bona and soser, but there's no tzad and shichrur. Shichrur is not a malacha. The Shiur Shabbos says in Surah 60, Mutar l'shachar kol bal chayim anitzod. You're allowed to set free any animal ki asur rak sedaso. Only trapping is also if ilu shichruro min hamakom shu muchzak bo mutar. But setting it free is allowed. As long as you don't touch it with your hand, because animals are muksa. We'll have to talk about that. That gets into muksa. But that's traps. Putting out a trap before Shabbos and on Shabbos. Finally, what about trapping a person? Confining a person. Does the malacha of trapping apply to people? This is not in the Gemara. There's no real Gemara about this, but maybe there's a better source. The Torah. Maybe there's a pasuk. Remember the Makoshesh? They found the Makoshesh in Bamidbar Parak Tezvav on Shabbos. Vayubnei Yisrael Bamidbar. Vayimtzu Yesh Makoshesh Eitzim. Vayakrivu Oso An Motzim Oso Makoshesh Eitzim. They brought him to Moshe and Aaron. They didn't know what to do. Vayanicho Oso Bamishmar. They put him into the jail, into the holding spot. Kilo Forash Ba'yei Asalo. They didn't know what the halacha was. So they did it. This is post Maimon Har Sinai. Sounds like it's mutter. Sounds like there's no problem to trap somebody on Shabbos. So the Piskei Tshuvos here in Shin Tez Zayin on this siman about the trapping quotes a couple of opinions. The Sefer HaKovitz, a commentary on Achron on the Rambam in the back of the Hilchot Shabbos, writes that he thinks there is a problem. There is a problem of tzad. The Gamat Tzad Adam, beginning of 62. Yesh b'zeh mishum isur tzeidah, davi davar shebemino nitzod. People are mino nitzod. Why? Rachmana litzlan. Sometimes people take hostages. So a person is called mino nitzod. Regilam lihilachem v'likach haname b'shevi. V'had b'tzina shenicha makoshesh. What about the makoshesh? Why was that allowed? Efshar, he quotes from the Kaf HaChaim, kiven ta'ayde chilul Shabbos shari. Maybe it was dafka because of chilul Shabbos. Maybe that's what would be mutter. The Avnei Nezer says no. The ba'adam gadol du ish ba'atzmo v'ad lo shach tzeta. An independent person, there's no shayach. Maybe it's not to be demishkan, Maybe a person doesn't usually try to run away from other people. Either way, many poskim assume that there is no problem. Another raya is that the Ramah discusses in Shulchan Aruch and Shin Lametes that if the authorities need to put somebody in jail on Shabbos, says if it's not a present danger, then they're not allowed to do that because of din and onshim on Shabbos, but not because of Seder. Seder is not brought up. Says the Ramah, if it's a present danger to the community, then you take it him on Shabbos. But if it's not, also litfos l'achlis l'beis asor misha nischai v'eza onesh. You know, somebody ate not kosher, so you didn't need to give them malchus. You're not allowed to take him on Shabbos. Kedei shelo yivrach. V'kol shekei shasol ha'kosa. Obviously, can't give malchus. Tavi bechlal did. V'im yivrach ain't aleinu klum. He runs away. We have done nothing. We have nothing wrong. So again, there's no mention here of tzeidah. But again, if there is a good reason, we would trap him. The Mishnah Berurah quotes there: if there's a man that's going to run away from giving his wife a get, you trap him. You hold him back. That's not an issue of trapping. But zeh muter hu lachavsho, says the Mishnah Berurah. Right? Because people generally don't try to get away. The Shiur Shabbos says people eino misha nimsa. I love people, but I'm running away from the authorities. That's not going to be called Seder. I can choose who I'm with, but still, that's not going to be Seder. And therefore, if there's a good reason to trap somebody, so then one would, if somebody's causing problems or is danger to the tzibur, or if it's a ganov, that will be okay. What about kids playing at home and trapping each other in the rooms? L'chara, it's only a bein adam l'chaver problem. It wouldn't be a bein adam l'makom problem because l'chara there's no tzeidah when it comes to people. Ad kan, this takes us through the third shiur here in this volume, the halachas of animals on Shabbos. We spoke about animals doing malacha, trapping. All different elements of trapping on Shabbos. And what we're going to have to do next time, the next shiur in this volume, is more halachas of animals, killing animals, dangerous animals, moving animals, feeding animals. All that comes up in the next shiur, volume number 4 in this volume. Have a great day.